Imagine someone showing up at your door with a locksmith, a fake law, and a smile and telling you your house now belongs to them. That's exactly what happened to me. And what followed will leave you stunned. The story. It was 7:15 a.m. when the pounding on my front door jolted me out of my morning routine, coffee still in hand. I opened it to find Karen Whitmore, our HOA president, standing there in her burgundy power suit, the one she wore for what she called enforcement days. But she wasn't alone. Beside her stood a locksmith, two nervous board members, and a manila folder thick enough to stop a bullet. Her icy smile looked like it could freeze water in July. "We need to conduct the property transfer inspection," she announced, tapping her manicured nails against her clipboard. 7 years is the maximum construction period allowed under our updated ordinance. Your house now falls under community asset protocol. For a moment, I couldn't even process the words. "Karen, I built this house with my own hands. Every board, every nail. This is my property." She tilted her head like I was a slow student. "Actually, according to Amendment 17B of our covenants, any property under extended construction becomes subject to HOA acquisition right. We voted on it last month." The so-called vote? A secret emergency meeting she called on a Tuesday afternoon. When everyone was at work, only 3 people showed up her wine. Club friends, and together they had declared the amendment unanimously passed. 7 years ago, I bought this empty lot in Pinewood Estates with a simple plan: build my dream home slowly, paying cash as I went. I worked evenings and weekends, brick by brick, after long days as a structural engineer downtown. The OA had been thrilled back then. The old president, Bob, would bring me lemonade and tell me to take my time. But 18 months ago, everything changed when Karen took over. She started small, measuring grass with a ruler, timing how long trash cans sat at the curb. Then came the pink violation notices. Your mailbox is 3 inches too tall. Your driveway's shine is unapproved. Your house numbers use a serif font when sans serif is required. Each violation carried a $50 fine. By month 2, I'd collected 37 notices and paid nearly $2,000 just to keep the peace, but it escalated. Karen began photographing my windows at 6 a.m., claiming curtain misalignment. She measured the angle of my porch light with a protractor. She compared my front door color to a paint wheel and declared it 1 shade too cheerful. And now, she was here to take my entire house. I pulled out my phone and hit record. "Karen, are you seriously trying to steal my home right now?" Her face tightened. "This isn't theft. It's a legal transfer of improperly managed assets. The community has suffered from your prolonged construction. We are simply protecting property values." I pressed further. "And what exactly does the HOA plan to do with my house?" Her eyes lit up. "We're converting it into a community center. The main floor for HOA meetings, the basement for storage, and the upstairs as office space for board members." So, in other words, she wanted it for herself. And then she made her biggest mistake. "We've already applied for state grants identifying this property as a community resource center." That afternoon, I sat down with my attorney, David Kim, a specialist in property law. When I explained, he actually laughed out loud. "Marcus, this is insane even by HOA standards. None of this is legal." We dug into the HOA bylaws, the real one filed with the county. Surprise, surprise, there was no. Amendment 17B, the last legitimate change, had been 2 years earlier, about pool fence heights, but David found something worse. Karen had submitted official grant applications to the state, claiming my house was already operating as a literacy center and senior hub. She'd even forged my signature as community director. $40,000 in funds were pending approval. 3 days later, Detective Patricia Morris knocked on my door. She was investigating potential fraud. I handed her the video, bogus amendment, fake signatures. The locksmith confirmed Karen had told him she was conducting a legal eviction. The board members admitted they had never seen Amendment 17B. Before that morning, Karen's scheme began to unravel. Investigators discovered this wasn't even her first attempt. She'd once tried to seize an elderly neighbor's shed, calling it blight and proposing it be replaced with an HOA storage unit. That failed when the neighbor's son, a police officer, intervened. Now, she'd gone too far. The February HOA meeting was standing room only. Residents filled the rec center, buzzing with stories of her harassment. Karen sat at the head table, shuffling papers, checking her phone, her usual smug confidence gone. When the board announced a motion for an emergency election, Karen objected, citing some made-up rule about notice period. But one by one, residents stood and shared their own grievance. The vote was decisive, 112 to 3. The only 3 votes for Karen came from her wine club friends, who immediately looked like they regretted it. But the real justice came at the courthouse. Karen stood before Judge William Patterson facing charges of attempted fraud, filing false documents, conspiracy to commit theft. Her lawyer argued she had misunderstood HOA regulations, but the evidence was overwhelming. A fake amendment drafted on her home computer. Fraudulent grant application with my forged signature. Emails conspiring to seize my workshop for HOA storage. The judge cut her off mid-defense. Attempting to steal a man's house is not a neighborhood improvement project. The sentence came down like a hammer. 3 years probation. $50,000 in fine. 300 hours of community service. A permanent ban from ever serving on any HOA board in the state. Plus $23,000 in my legal fees. Karen's face went pale. That's more than my annual salary, she whispered. I'll lose my own house. The judge's expression never changed. Perhaps you should have thought of that before attempting to take someone else's. Ending. Since that day, Pinewood Estates has been peaceful again. A new, reasonable president was elected. Someone who actually cares about the community. And my house? It's still mine. Every board, every nail, every tile built by my hand, protected by justice, and a permanent reminder that sometimes the HOA villain really does get what's coming.